Jake Morrison lay on his back beneath the 1970 Dodge Charger, his hands covered in grease as he worked on the oil pan. The radio played classic rock in the corner of his garage, and the smell of motor oil and metal filled the air. It was a perfect Tuesday afternoon in Denver, Colorado. Nothing special, nothing unusual, just the way Jake liked it. Then everything went white. A beam of brilliant light flooded through every window and crack in the garage. Jake rolled out from under the Charger, shielding his eyes. The concrete floor vibrated beneath him. Tools rattled on their hooks. The radio went silent with a sharp pop. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, standing up and grabbing a wrench out of pure instinct. The light faded, and Jake found himself staring at something that definitely wasn't supposed to be in his garage. A ship, if he could call it that, floated 2 feet off the ground. It looked like someone had taken a perfect silver egg and stretched it out. No windows, no visible engines, no nothing. Just smooth metal that seemed to drink in the light around it. A door appeared in the side of the ship, sliding open without a sound. 3 figures stepped out, and Jake's grip tightened on his wrench. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that looked like polished blue stone. Their heads were smooth and elongated, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They wore uniforms that seemed to be made of the same material as their ship, all flowing lines and no visible seams. "Human Jake Morrison," one of them said. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, definitely not from anything that looked like a mouth. "We are representatives of the Galactic Transit Authority." Jake blinked. "The what now?" "The Galactic Transit Authority," the alien repeated, as if talking to a slow child. "We oversee proper vehicle operation across 17,000 civilized worlds. And you're in my garage, because..." The alien on the left pulled out a device that looked like a tablet made of light. "Your species has been granted limited access to galactic travel routes for 50 Earth years. In that time, humans have accumulated more traffic violations than the previous 10 species combined. Your collective disregard for safety protocols has become a crisis." Jake couldn't help it. He laughed. "You're here to give Earth a speeding ticket?" The 3 aliens looked at each other. The middle one stepped forward. "This is not a matter of humor, human. Your species operates vehicles at dangerous velocities, ignores automated safety systems, and actively disables collision prevention technology. 3 human vessels have been clocked at velocities that exceed safe operational parameters by factors of 300%. Did they crash? That is not the point. Sounds like it should be the point, Jake said. The alien on the right made a sound like grinding gears. The middle one held up a hand which had too many fingers. "We are here to implement cultural rehabilitation. Your species must learn proper respect for vehicular safety." That's when the ship's door opened again, and she stepped out. She was smaller than the blue aliens, maybe 5.5 feet tall. Her skin was purple, but not solid purple. It shifted and shimmered like oil on water, iridescent and changing with every movement. She had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a face that was almost human-like, except for the eyes. They were huge, taking up 1/3 of her face, and they were the color of liquid gold. She also looked extremely unhappy. "This is Zixith," the middle alien said. "She is a juvenile of the Velkari species. She has been assigned to your facility for cultural rehabilitation." "My facility?" Jake looked around his garage. "This is a garage, not a facility." "You repair and operate ground vehicles, correct?" "Yeah, but..." "Then this is a vehicular facility. Zixith will remain here for a period of no less than 30 Earth days. She will observe proper human vehicle operation and learn the consequences of reckless behavior. We believe exposure to your species' dangerous practices will cure her of her own tendencies toward unsafe operation." Jake stared at them. "You're punishing her by making her hang out with humans?" Precisely. And you're punishing us by leaving her here. The aliens exchanged looks again. That is an acceptable interpretation. Zixith crossed her arms and glared at Jake with those huge golden eyes. When she spoke, her voice was higher than the blue aliens, with a musical quality that made Jake think of wind chimes. I don't want to be here any more than you want me here, human. This is beneath me. I am a pilot of the Valkyrie racing circuit, not some child who needs supervision. Racing circuit? Jake raised an eyebrow. What do you race? Star skimmers, she said, her chin lifting with pride. I held the record for the Andromeda run until... She stopped, shooting a glare at the blue aliens. Until you disabled 17 safety systems and nearly collided with a passenger liner, the middle alien finished, which is why you are here. The alien handed Jake a tablet. This one was physical at least, even if it looked like no tablet Jake had ever seen. These are the supervision guidelines. Ensure she does not operate any vehicles. Ensure she observes proper safety protocols. Report any concerning behavior immediately. Wait, I didn't agree to. But the three blue aliens were already moving back toward their ship. The Galactic Transit Authority thanks you for your cooperation. You will be compensated at the standard rate. Good luck, human. The ship door closed. The white light returned, less intense this time, and then the ship was simply gone. No sound, no exhaust, nothing. Just gone. Jake stood in his garage, holding an alien tablet, staring at a purple alien girl, who looked like she wanted to murder him. So, Jake said, after a long moment, you hungry? There's a pizza place down the street. Zixith looked around the garage with obvious disgust. Her eyes took in the oil stains on the floor, the tools scattered on the workbench, the chargers still up on jacks. This is a disaster, she said. I've never seen such primitive conditions. Where are your safety barriers, your air filtration systems, your automated cleaning drones? Don't have any. Don't need any. You work with toxic chemicals and no filtration? I've got a fan. Jake pointed to the box fan in the corner. Zixith made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. 30 days. I have to survive 30 days in this garage, Jake offered helpfully. Nightmare, Zixith finished. Jake looked at the purple alien, at his garage, and at the charger waiting for him. He thought about the tablet in his hands and the insane situation he'd just found himself in. Then he grinned. This is going to be interesting. Zixith glared at him. I hate you already. Yeah, Jake said, tossing the tablet onto his workbench and heading back to the charger. I get that a lot. He slid back under the car, picked up his wrench, and got back to work. Above him, he could hear Zixith sputtering in what he assumed was indignation. 30 days with an alien. Sure. Why not? He'd dealt with worse. Probably. The first 3 days were hell. Zixith had opinions about everything, and she wasn't shy about sharing them. Jake learned that his coffee was basically poison, his music was auditory assault, and his work methods were statistically likely to result in severe injury or death. You're using a pneumatic impact wrench without hearing protection, she announced on the morning of day 2, her golden eyes wide with horror. Jake didn't even look up from the brake assembly he was working on. Yup, the decibel level exceeds safe exposure limits by 43%. Probably. You could suffer permanent hearing damage. Might already have some, Jake said cheerfully. Hard to tell over the ringing. Zixith made that sound again, the one that was half laugh and half despair. She'd been making it a lot. Jake had to admit, though, she was observant. She'd already spotted 17 safety violations, as she called them, and they were only on day 2. Most of them were things Jake had never even thought about. Apparently working under a car without a secondary support system was criminally negligent. Who knew? The tablet the aliens had left turned out to be less helpful than expected. The supervision guidelines read like someone had written a manual for babysitting a particularly reckless toddler. Don't let her operate vehicles. Ensure adequate nutrition. Monitor for signs of distress. Report any concerning behavior. Jake had tossed it in a drawer after the first day. What he hadn't expected was for Zixith to actually stick around. He'd figured she'd spend most of her time in whatever quarters she'd set up for herself. The aliens hadn't left her with much. Just a small device that apparently created a living space in the back corner of his garage. Some kind of dimensional fold technology that made his head hurt when he thought about it too hard. But she didn't hide in there. She wandered around the garage, asking questions, poking at things, and generally making her presence known. "What is that?" she asked on day 3, pointing at the Charger. 1970 Dodge Charger, Jake said. "Or it will be when I'm done with it." "What does it do?" "Goes fast, mostly." Zixith walked around the car, her head tilted to one side. "I don't see a navigation computer." "Doesn't have one." "Collision avoidance sensors?" "Nope." "Automated steering?" "Not even a little bit." She stopped, her golden eyes fixed on him. "Then how does it know where to go?" Jake climbed out from under the car and wiped his hands on a rag. "It doesn't. I do." The look on her face was worth everything. Pure, undiluted confusion. "All of it?" "That's the idea." "But that's—" She struggled for words. "That's insane. The margin for error is enormous. The cognitive load alone would be overwhelming. How do you process all the variables?" "Practice," Jake said with a shrug. "But why?" Zixith gestured at the Charger like it had personally offended her. "Why would you create a vehicle that requires so much effort to operate safely? Why not let computers handle it?" Jake set down his wrench and really looked at her. This was the first time she'd asked a question that wasn't about his safety violations. This was actual curiosity. "Because it's not about safety," he said. "I mean, safety matters, don't get me wrong. But that's not why we drive." "Then why do you? How did you explain it to someone who never felt it?" Jake looked at the Charger, at the lines of the body, the promise of power in every curve. "It's freedom," he said finally. "It's the feeling of the road under your tires, the engine responding to your foot, the wheel in your hands. It's you and the machine working together, going somewhere just because you can." Zixix's face did something complicated. "That's illogical. A vehicle is a tool for transportation. It should be optimized for efficiency and safety." "Maybe for you," Jake said. "For us, it's more than that. It's an extension of ourselves. A partner, not a tool." "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Jake walked over to the Charger and put his hand on the hood. "When you're flying your star skimmer, do you just sit back and let the computers do everything?" She was quiet for a moment. "That's different." "How?" "Racing requires skill, pushing the limits of performance. It's not the same as ordinary transportation." "And you don't think driving is the same thing?" Zixith opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Are you saying humans treat all vehicle operation like racing?" Jake admitted. "Not all of it, but the fun stuff? Yeah, pretty much." She turned back to the Charger, and Jake could practically see the gears turning in her head. The Galactic Transit Authority was right. Your species is insane. That's what makes it fun. Over the next few days, something shifted. Zixith still complained about the oil stains and the lack of safety equipment. She still lectured Jake about proper ventilation and the importance of secondary support systems. But she also started asking more questions. She wanted to know how the engine worked, why Jake chose this particular car to restore, what made it special compared to the newer vehicles that passed by the garage. Jake found himself explaining the difference between a flathead and a Hemi, the feel of a big block versus a small block, the sound a properly tuned V8 made when it came to life. He showed her the carburetor, the transmission, the differential, all things that her people had abandoned thousands of years ago in favor of computer-controlled everything. "It's so complicated," she said, staring at the engine. So many moving parts, so many things that could go wrong. That's what makes it beautiful, Jake said. Every part has to work with every other part. It's like a symphony. A symphony that could explode. Only if you do it wrong. She looked at him with those huge golden eyes. Have you done it wrong? Jake grinned. Once or twice. That's how you learn. On day 7, Jake found Zixith in the garage before he even opened up. She was standing next to the charger, one hand hovering just above the hood, not quite touching it. Morning, Jake said. She jumped, pulling her hand back like the car had burned her. I was just looking. It's okay, Jake said. You can touch it if you want. I don't want to, she said quickly. Then after a pause, what does it feel like? The car? When you drive it, what does it feel like? Jake thought about it. Like flying, I guess, but you're connected to the ground. You feel every bump, every curve, every shift in the road. The engine's power is right there, under your control. It's like dancing with something wild. Zixith's expression was hungry now, the arrogance from the first day gone. My people don't feel that way about vehicles anymore. We optimized it all away. Computers handle everything. It's safer, more efficient. She paused. It's boring. Is that why you race? I race because I'm good at it, she said, her chin coming up. I held the record for the Andromeda run. Until you got caught. Until I got caught, she agreed. Jake wiped his hands and made a decision. You want to make a deal? Zixith's eyes narrowed. What kind of deal? Ride with me. One time. Let me show you what human driving is really about. If you still think we're just reckless idiots after that, I'll follow all your safety protocols for the rest of your stay. Every single one. And if I don't, then you write your report and tell the GTA the truth. That humans aren't reckless. We just understand vehicles differently than you do. She stared at him for a long moment. You're serious. Completely. When I say ride with you, you mean in that thing? She pointed at the charger. Once it's finished, should be another week or so. Zixith walked around the car again, slower this time. Her hand finally touched the hood, just for a second. When she pulled away, her fingers were trembling. Okay, she said quietly. Deal. You're going to love this. I'm going to regret this, Zixith corrected. But she was smiling too, just a little. The next week passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Jake had built engines before. He'd restored dozens of cars. But knowing that Zixith was watching every move, asking questions about every decision, made it different somehow. He found himself explaining things he usually just felt, putting words to instincts he'd had since he was 16. Why are you setting the timing that way? She asked on day 12. Because I want the power band higher up in the RPM range, Jake said, adjusting the distributor. This engine's built for performance, not fuel economy. But that reduces efficiency. Yep. And that doesn't bother you? Jake looked up at her. You ever do something just because it felt right, even if it wasn't the most efficient way? Zixith was quiet for a moment. The Andromeda run. I could have taken the standard route. It was faster, statistically. But I went through the Veil Nebula instead. Why? Because it was beautiful, she said softly, and because no one else had done it. There you go, Jake said, grinning. Same thing. The charger came together piece by piece. Jake replaced the brake lines, rebuilt the carburetor, and installed new shocks. The interior needed work too, and he spent 2 full days restoring the leather seats and dashboard. Zixith helped with that, surprisingly. Her people's technology included some kind of molecular restructuring tool that made the leather look brand new. Jake wasn't about to complain about alien cheating, not when it saved him 40 hours of work. On day 18, Jake turned the key for the first time. The engine caught, coughed, and died. Is that supposed to happen? Zixith asked. Sometimes, Jake said. Let's try again. The second time, the engine roared to life. The sound filled the garage, a deep rumbling thunder that made the windows rattle and the tools dance on their hooks. Jake let it run for a minute, listening, feeling the vibrations through the floor, checking for anything that sounded off. It was perfect. Zixith stood frozen, her golden eyes wide. Her skin had shifted to a brighter purple. Something Jake had learned meant she was excited or alarmed. That's incredibly loud. 426 cubic inches of American muscle, Jake said proudly. She's a beast. It sounds angry. She sounds alive. Jake shut the engine off, and the sudden silence was almost overwhelming. He turned to find Zixith still staring at the car, her expression unreadable. When? She asked. When what? When do we go? Jake checked the calendar. Day 23, this Saturday. Gives me time to do a full systems check and test drive it myself first. Can't have you thinking we crashed because I screwed something up. I thought humans didn't care about safety, she said, but there was a teasing note in her voice now. We care about smart risks, Jake corrected. Big difference. The next few days were torture for both of them. Jake tested the Charger twice, taking it out on short drives around the neighborhood. Everything performed perfectly. The engine purred like a satisfied cat, or roared like a dragon when he pushed it. The transmission shifted smooth as silk. The brakes were solid. It was ready. Zixith, meanwhile, was getting progressively more nervous. Jake caught her standing next to the Charger multiple times, just staring at it. Once, he found her sitting in the passenger seat, her hands gripping the door handle like it might fly away. Second thoughts? He asked. No, she said quickly. Too quickly. I'm not scared. Didn't say you were. I'm a pilot. I've flown through solar storms and navigated asteroid fields. I'm not scared of a primitive ground vehicle. Okay, Jake said, fighting back a smile. I'm not. On Friday night, Jake sat her down and got serious. Listen, he said. I need you to understand something. This isn't like your star skimmer. There's no computer helping you. No safety systems catching mistakes. It's going to be intense. G-forces, speed, the whole package. Your biology can handle it, according to the information your people left me, but it's going to feel different than anything you've experienced. Zixith nodded, her expression solemn. I understand. If at any point you want me to stop, you say so. No shame in it. I won't want you to stop. But if you do, I said I won't, she interrupted, her eyes flashing. I made a deal. I keep my deals. Jake studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then, let me tell you about the route. He pulled out a map, the old-fashioned paper kind that Zixith had never seen before. His finger traced a line through the mountains west of Denver. This is Highway 285, but we're not taking the highway. There's an old road that parallels it, up in the mountains. It's closed to regular traffic now. Too dangerous. Too many rock slides. But I know the ranger who maintains it, and he owes me a favor. Dangerous? Zixith leaned closer to look at the map. The road's fine, Jake assured her. Just twisty. Elevation changes, hairpin turns, straightaways where you can really open her up. It's perfect. How fast will we go? Jake grinned. Fast enough. That wasn't an answer, and they both knew it. But Zixith didn't push. She studied the map, her finger tracing the route Jake had shown her. How long? About an hour, maybe 90 minutes depending on how much fun we have. And you've driven this road before? Dozens of times. I know every curve, every bump, every place where the road tries to surprise you. Zixith sat back, her purple skin shimmering in the garage lights. The GTA would lose their minds if they knew about this. Probably, Jake agreed. They'd add another 50 violations to humanity's record. Most likely. And you don't care? Jake thought about it. I care about the things that matter. I care about the engine being solid. I care about the brakes working. I care about knowing the road and respecting what the car can do. The rest, he shrugged. The rest is just rules made by people who forgot what it's like to really drive. Zixith was quiet for a long moment. My people forgot too, she said finally. We went from biological flight to computer-assisted vehicles without ever having this middle stage where we had to trust ourselves. Is that why you got in trouble? Jake asked. Because you were trying to find it? Maybe. She stood up, her hands clenched into fists. I disabled the safety systems because I wanted to feel it, to really fly, not just sit in a chair while computers did all the work. The Valkyrie racing circuit is the closest we have, but even that's 80% automation. I wanted more. And you almost hit a passenger liner. I didn't almost hit it, she protested. I was in complete control. I had at least 4 seconds of clearance. Jake laughed. 4 seconds is nothing. 4 seconds is an eternity when you're flying at 0.7 light speed. Fair enough. Jake stood up and stretched. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's gonna be a big day. Zixith nodded and headed toward her dimensional quarters in the corner. At the door, she paused and looked back. Jake? Yeah? Thank you. For this. For understanding. Hey, I'm getting something out of it too. If you write a good enough report, maybe the GTA will stop hassling us. She smiled, that small expression he'd been seeing more and more over the past week. I'll write an honest report. That's all I can promise. That's all I'm asking. After she disappeared into her quarters, Jake walked over to the charger one more time. He ran his hand along the hood, feeling the cool metal under his palm. The midnight blue paint gleamed in the overhead lights, the white racing stripes perfect and clean. Tomorrow, he whispered to the car. Tomorrow we show her what we can do. The charger sat silent, but Jake could have sworn he felt it respond. A promise of thunder and speed waiting to be unleashed. He couldn't wait. Saturday morning came with clear blue skies and perfect weather. Jake had been up since dawn, doing a final check on the charger. He checked the tire pressure, the oil level, the brake fluid. Everything was perfect. The car was ready. The question was whether Zixith was ready. She emerged from her quarters looking like she hadn't slept at all. Her purple skin was pale, shifting between lavender and deep violet in waves. Her golden eyes were huge, even bigger than usual. Morning, Jake said, keeping his voice casual. You okay? Fine, she said. Her voice was higher than normal. Perfectly fine. Ready to do this. Completely ready. Uh-huh. Jake tossed her a jacket. Put this on. It'll get cold in the mountains. She caught it awkwardly and stared at it. This is protective gear? It's a jacket, Jake said. It keeps you warm. But no armor plating? No energy shielding? Nope. Just leather and attitude. Zixith pulled on the jacket. It was too big for her, the sleeves hanging past her hands, but she rolled them up and somehow made it work. Jake had to admit, she looked good. Nervous, but good. Come on, he said, opening the garage door. Let's go. The charger sat in the morning sunlight, the midnight blue paint looking almost black in the shadows, electric blue where the light hit it. The white racing stripes seemed to glow. Jake had washed it the night before, and every inch of chrome gleamed. Zixith approached the car like it was a wild animal that might bite. She circled it once, her hand trailing along the body, without quite touching it. When she reached the passenger door, she stopped and took a deep breath. Remember, Jake said, climbing into the driver's seat, if you want me to stop. I know, she interrupted. I won't. She got in, and Jake showed her the seatbelt. Her people's vehicles didn't use them, apparently. Everything was force fields and inertial dampeners. The simple mechanical click of the belt locking made her jump. This is the safety system? She asked, tugging at the belt. A strap? A really good strap, Jake said. Trust me, it works. He put the key in the ignition and looked at her. Last chance to back out. Start the engine, Zixit said, her jaw set. Jake turned the key. The 426 Hemi roared to life, and Zixit's hands immediately went to the door handle. The whole car vibrated with the engine's power, a deep rumble that Jake felt in his chest. He let it idle for a moment, giving her time to adjust to the sound and sensation. Holy! Zixit whispered something in her own language that Jake's translator didn't catch. It's so loud. That's the point, Jake said, grinning. He put the car in gear and eased out of the garage. Jake kept the speed reasonable, the acceleration smooth. He wanted to ease Zixit into it, let her feel how the car moved before he really opened it up. She sat rigid in her seat, her hands gripping the door handle and the edge of her seat, her eyes fixed straight ahead. They hit Highway 285 and started climbing into the mountains. The road here was still public, still boring, just a steady climb through pine forests and granite outcroppings. Zixit started to relax a little, her death grip on the door handle loosening. This isn't so bad, she said. This isn't the ride, Jake replied. This is just the warm-up. 20 minutes later, they reached the turnoff. The old road branched off from the highway, a narrow strip of cracked asphalt that immediately started twisting up into the mountains. A faded sign said, "Road closed, no entry." Jake ignored it and turned onto the old road. That sign said closed, Zixit pointed out. I told you, the ranger owes me a favor. It's fine. The road narrowed, hugging the mountainside. On one side, granite cliffs rose up. On the other side, the ground dropped away into a valley that made Zixit make a small sound of distress. Don't look down, Jake advised. Look ahead. There's no guardrail. Nope. That seems like a safety violation. That's why the road's closed, Jake said cheerfully. Ready? No, Zixit said. Do it anyway. Jake smiled and pressed the accelerator. The Charger leaped forward, like it had been waiting for this moment its entire life. The engine's roar deepened, becoming a savage snarl of pure power. They hit the first curve, and Jake let the car drift, just slightly, the back end sliding out before he corrected it with a tiny turn of the wheel. Zixit made a sound that no Valkyrie had ever made before. It was high-pitched and startled and absolutely terrified. But Jake was just getting started. The road climbed and twisted, hairpin turns followed by short straightaways, followed by sweeping curves that seemed to go on forever. Jake drove like the car was part of him, his hands making tiny adjustments on the wheel, his feet dancing between gas and brake, reading the road like he was having a conversation with it. And the Charger responded. Every input Jake gave it translated into motion, into power, into speed. They hit a straight section, and Jake pushed the accelerator to the floor. The speedometer climbed past 70, past 80, past 90. The engine screamed. Zixit was making continuous sounds now, a stream of what might have been words, or might have been pure panic. Her hands were white-knuckled on the door handle and seat. Her eyes were the size of dinner plates. They hit another curve, a tight right-hander that seemed to come out of nowhere. Jake braked hard, downshifted, and threw the car into the turn. The tires screamed. Zixit screamed. The car drifted through the apex of the curve, perfectly balanced on the edge of control, and then they were through it and accelerating again. Jake, Zixit shouted. That was awesome, Jake suggested. Insane. Same thing. They climbed higher, the road getting narrower and more twisted. A hairpin turn appeared, one of those switchbacks where you had to slow to almost nothing and crank the wheel hard. Jake took it at 30, which was probably twice as fast as anyone else would have, and Zixit could see straight down the mountain to the valley floor 1,000 feet below. She stopped screaming. Jake glanced over, worried, and saw that her expression had changed. The terror was still there, but something else had joined it. Her eyes were wide, but focused now. She was watching the road, watching Jake's hands on the wheel, watching how the car moved. She was starting to understand. The next straightaway was longer, and Jake really opened it up. 100 miles per hour, the engine at full roar, the world blurring past. But this time, when they hit the curve at the end, Zixith didn't scream. She leaned into it, her body shifting with the car's motion like she could feel what it was going to do. "You're reading the road," Jake said, impressed. "I'm trying," Zixith shouted over the engine noise. "The car telegraphs what it's going to do. The way it shifts, the sound of the tires, the pull of the turn. Now you're getting it." They crested a rise, and suddenly the whole valley spread out before them. Miles and miles of mountains and forest and sky. The road ahead was a perfect ribbon of asphalt, swooping down and then back up in a series of curves that looked like a roller coaster track. Jake looked at Zixith. "You ready for the best part?" She looked at the road, at the drop, at the curves waiting for them. Then she looked at Jake, and she was smiling. Actually smiling, her golden eyes bright with something that looked a lot like joy. "Yes," she said. "Do it." Jake dropped the hammer. What followed was pure magic. The charger dove down the mountain like a bird of prey, Jake threading it through curves that seemed impossible, finding the perfect line through each one. The engine sang, the tires gripped, and the car danced. And Zixith laughed. It started as a giggle, high and surprised, and then became a full laugh of pure delight. She wasn't holding on to the door handle anymore. Her hands were in the air, and she was leaning into every turn like a kid on an amusement park ride. "Again!" she shouted. "Faster! We're already going 90. I don't care. More!" Jake laughed too and gave her what she wanted. They hit the bottom of the descent and immediately started climbing again, the engine working hard, Jake shifting through the gears to keep the power coming. Another series of curves, these ones tighter, and Jake drifted the car through each one, the back end sliding in perfect controlled arcs. By the time they reached the overlook Jake had been aiming for, Zixith was breathing hard, her purple skin flushed a deep violet. Jake pulled the car to a stop at the scenic viewpoint and killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. They sat there for a long moment, both of them breathing hard, staring out at the mountains spread before them. "That was," Zixith started, then stopped. Started again. "That was." "Yeah," Jake agreed. She turned to look at him, her golden eyes shining. "Again." Jake grinned. "Yeah? Now, please, I need to feel that again." So they did it again. The drive back down was different. Zixith wasn't a passenger anymore. She was part of it, reading the road with Jake, anticipating the turns, feeling the rhythm of the car. When they drifted through the curves, she moved with it. When Jake accelerated, she leaned forward like she could make the car go faster through sheer will. By the time they pulled back into the garage, the sun was setting, and both of them were grinning like idiots. Zixith sat in the Charger for 5 full minutes after Jake turned off the engine, just staring straight ahead. Her hands were still trembling. Her purple skin was cycling through colors Jake had never seen before, deep violet to bright lavender and back again. "You okay?" Jake asked. She turned to look at him, her golden eyes bright with something that might have been tears if her species cried. "I understand now," she whispered. "I finally understand." Over the next 2 days, Zixith barely left the garage. She sat at Jake's workbench with the alien tablet, writing and deleting and writing again. Jake left her alone, sensing that she needed space to process whatever had happened on that mountain road. On day 26, she showed him what she'd written. The report was nothing like what the Galactic Transit Authority had expected. Jake couldn't read most of it, written in some flowing script that made his eyes hurt. But Zixith translated the important parts. "I told them the truth," she said, "that humans aren't reckless, that they have a different relationship with vehicles than the rest of the galaxy, that their violations aren't born from ignorance, but from a philosophy that values partnership with machines over complete automation. "Think they'll buy it?" Jake asked. Zixith's expression was complicated. "No, but I don't care anymore." She sent the report that evening. The response came within an hour. The GTA was not pleased. Jake got to watch through Zixith's communication device as 3 different officials, all of them the same blue stone-skinned species that had dropped her off, took turns expressing their disappointment. Zixith had failed in her rehabilitation. She had clearly been corrupted by human recklessness. She was to return immediately for proper psychological evaluation and retraining. "Retraining," Zixith said, her voice flat. "They want to suppress my pilot instincts even more." "You don't have to go," Jake said. "I do. I'm still a citizen. I still have responsibilities." She looked at him. "But thank you for showing me that I wasn't broken, that there was a reason I never fit in." The ship came for her the next morning. Different officials this time, but the same disapproving expressions. They barely acknowledged Jake as they collected Zixith and her few belongings. Before she left, Zixith turned to Jake. "I'm going to keep writing, keep talking to people. The report's already been filed. They can't delete it." "Good luck with that," Jake said. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." She paused at the ship's door. "Jake, that feeling on the mountain, what did you call it?" "Freedom," Jake said. Zixith smiled. "I like that." Then she was gone, and Jake's garage felt oddly empty without her complaining about his safety violations. Life went back to normal. Jake worked on cars, drank his poison coffee, and ran his pneumatic tools without hearing protection. The Charger sat in the garage, a reminder of one crazy month with an alien girl who just wanted to fly. 6 weeks later, Jake got a message on the alien tablet he'd forgotten to throw away. It was from Zixith, and it included a video file. The video showed what looked like a hangar, but not like any hangar Jake had seen before. There were vehicles there, dozens of them, and they looked wrong. They had the sleek lines of galactic technology, but also the aggressive stance of muscle cars. Scopes and spoilers and exhaust pipes. Young aliens of a dozen different species worked on them, and every single one of them had huge smiles on their faces. Zixith appeared in the frame, standing next to a vehicle that looked like someone had made it a star skimmer with a hot rod. "Hey Jake," she said, "thought you'd want to see this. Turns out I wasn't the only one who felt trapped by all the safety systems and automation. My report went viral among the younger generations. They started calling me, asking questions, wanting to learn." She gestured at the hangar. "So I started teaching them. We call it analog driving, building vehicles that require actual skill to operate, racing without computer assistance, feeling the machine instead of just commanding it." The camera panned across the hangar, showing aliens working on engines, testing suspension systems, arguing about gear ratios. They all looked excited, alive, in a way Jake recognized. "The GTA considers it a crisis," Zixith continued, grinning. "They've filed 17 complaints. They're threatening sanctions. They say we're undermining thousands of years of safety improvements." Her grin got wider. "Humans think it's hilarious." The video showed more scenes. Aliens racing on closed courses, learning to drift, whooping with joy as they pushed their hand-built vehicles to the limit. It looked chaotic and dangerous and absolutely perfect. "I wanted to thank you," Zixith said, the camera back on her. "You gave me something I didn't know I was missing, a connection to something real, a way to fly that actually meant something." She paused. "Also, I'm coming back to Earth next month. There's a track in California that some humans are letting us use. You in." The video ended with Zixith waving, standing in front of her hybrid vehicle, looking happier than Jake had ever seen her. Jake sat in his garage, staring at the tablet, and laughed. He laughed until his sides hurt, until he had to wipe tears from his eyes. The GTA had sent Zixif to him as punishment. They'd thought exposing her to human recklessness would cure her. Instead, she'd started a revolution. He sent a message back. Just 2 words. I'm in. 3 weeks later, a ship landed in front of his garage. Not the official GTA vessel from before, but something smaller, sleeker, and painted the same midnight blue as the Charger. The door opened, and Zixif stepped out, wearing a leather jacket that actually fit her this time, and a huge smile. Behind her, 3 other young aliens emerged, all of them looking around the garage, with the same wide-eyed excitement Zixif had once shown. Jake Morrison, Zixif announced. They want to learn from the Master. Jake looked at the young aliens, all of them practically vibrating with enthusiasm, and shook his head in amazement. The Master? I'm just a mechanic. You're the human who taught me that vehicles are partners, not tools, Zixif said. You showed me what freedom feels like. That makes you a master. One of the aliens, a short being covered in what looked like golden fur, stepped forward. Is it true you drive vehicles with no computer assistance at all? Completely manual, Jake confirmed. The alien made a sound of pure awe. Will you teach us? Jake looked at Zixif, who was grinning at him. He looked at the eager young aliens, who traveled across the galaxy to learn how to really drive. He looked at his garage, his tools, and the Charger sitting there like it was waiting for its next adventure. Yeah, he said, smiling. I can teach you. But first, who wants to see what this thing can really do? The chorus of enthusiastic responses was loud enough to shake the windows. As Jake led them to the Charger, explaining the basics of internal combustion and manual transmission, Zixif fell into step beside him. The GTA is losing their minds, she said quietly. Every week, more young people are turning off their safety systems, building custom vehicles, racing. They're calling it the biggest safety crisis in galactic history. Good, Jake said. They blame you, you know. They say you corrupted me. Jake thought about that ride up the mountain, about the moment Zixif had stopped being terrified and started understanding. About the joy on her face when she finally felt what real driving was. Yeah, he said. I'm okay with that. Zixif laughed. Me too. They reached the Charger, and Jake opened the hood to show the young aliens the engine. Their reactions ranged from confusion to fascination to outright horror at the primitive technology. This is just the beginning, Zixif said, watching her students crowd around the engine. By next year, we'll have analog racing circuits on a dozen worlds. The GTA can't stop all of us. What happens when they try? Jake asked. Zixif's grin was fierce. Then we go faster. That evening, after Jake had given all of them rides in the Charger, each one resulting in the same progression from terror to joy, they gathered in the garage. The young aliens were chattering excitedly, comparing notes, already planning the vehicles they wanted to build. Zixif pulled Jake aside. I brought you something, she said, and handed him a data stick. The specs for a hybrid engine. Combines your combustion technology with our power systems. Thought you might want to build something new. What kind of power are we talking about? Enough to make that mountain road feel like a parking lot, Zixif said. Think you can handle it? Jake looked at the young aliens in his garage, at Zixif standing there with that challenging smile, at the future opening up in front of him in ways he'd never imagined. He thought about the GTA officials, somewhere out in the galaxy, watching their carefully ordered systems fall apart, because one human mechanic had taken one alien girl for a ride, and shown her what freedom felt like. Yeah, Jake said, grinning. I can handle it. Zixif held out her hand, and Jake shook it. Welcome to the revolution, she said. Revolution? Jake raised an eyebrow. I thought this was just about cars. It's never just about cars, Zixif said. It's about the right to choose risk over safety, adventure over comfort, Freedom over control. She looked at her students, at the eager young faces from a dozen different worlds. You started something, Jake. Something the galaxy didn't know it needed. I just gave you a ride, Jake protested. The best ride of my life, Zixif corrected, and one I'll never forget. From the charger, one of the aliens called out a question about compression ratios. Jake went to answer it, and Zixif followed, and together they taught a new generation how to really drive. Outside the garage, the stars were coming out. Somewhere up there, the Galactic Transit Authority was probably having emergency meetings about the chaos spreading through their orderly systems. Down here, in a garage in Denver, Colorado, a human mechanic and an alien pilot were teaching the next generation that some rules were made to be broken, and that the best journeys were the ones where you held the wheel yourself. The revolution had begun, and it sounded like a 426 Hemi at full throttle. Perfect.